talk about Compass Group, but I've got myself a cup of coffee and I'll just go back to Central TV for a minute because I used to work on Central Weekend Live, which was a Friday Night Live television programme. Now, you'd think I'd be more exhausted having done the day's shift, but I just was bored of a night, so I just thought, I don't want to go home and watch the telly. I'll go out and work and earn £25 for doing so. And even if I was in London on a Friday, I would come back, go home, get a Chinese takeaway, and then get out to Central TV for the 10:40 start of Central Weekend Live. And it was a chat show, and they needed various volunteers or whatever helpers on the show. So I'd be upstairs and I'd have a headset on, and I'd listen to all the people commenting on the television programme. So if it's about smoking, they might have a conversation about smoking, and whatever topic of the week was around, they would put that into the show. So I'd be listening to all this, type the messages on a card, I'd run them down a corridor, give them to the gentleman, the floor manager. He'd get it downstairs and put it to the presenter. So it was quite full on, and I did like the fact that it was live and there was anything could happen, and a few things did that were personal to people as well. Some people given terrible news before they went on air, and they would still carry on and they'd do the television programme, and I'd think, how are they doing it? And they were so strong, to do it. So yeah, there were a few things going on behind the scenes, but you wouldn't know that on live on air. And off I went home, and I'd get back about 12:41 in the morning, and one of the shows had Edwina Currie on, the MP, and Edwina was quite famous or infamous for her commenting on eggs at one stage, saying that they should always be in a fridge. And I remember thinking, well, they're not in a fridge in the supermarkets. They're out on the shelves, aren't they? And anyway, that's that. But I met Edwina Currie when I was 10 because my mum had an awful problem getting me into a secondary school. The boundary came on my garden. So if I stayed in half the garden, I was able to go to the school of my choice. And if I was in the other half, I wasn't. And they ruled that I couldn't go to that school. And all my friends went to that school. And it was a really good school in Kings Norton. And I was told I had to go to apparently one of the worst schools in Great Britain. And that was coming out of the mouth of the headmaster, who pulled no punches. He was an Aries, forthright. He said, if you send her there, she'll be crushed. It's the worst school in the Midlands. So my mum kept me off school for 6 weeks, and I remember fretting and getting all worried, and we went along to see old Edwina in her counsellor position, and she said, cut back on the chocolate biscuits, and you two can send your child to a private school. My mum's face dropped, and I remember crying because I remember thinking, why is this woman not getting this scenario here? Why is she giving us a load of flim-flam about private education? My mum couldn't afford £200 of biscuits a week, let alone private education. And I remember feeling upset. She said, why is she crying? She really ripped into the fact that I was upset. Mum said, forget it. I know the answer. The only way I can deal with this is to send her to the local Catholic school. And that's where I went. And the good thing was, I met up with a girl from primary school who'd left to go to another primary school, and I always had liked her, and we've been good friends, close friends ever since. Even though she's in Australia, I message her all the time. So I met up with somebody I really liked. So that's funny. So it was meant to be. And we solved the Edwina thing, moved on. I get to Central TV, Central Weekend Live, and Edwina comes through the door. I'm at reception, having to take her as a guest to the green room, and I see a gentleman called Nick Cotton from EastEnders. He's a nice character. He clocked me very quickly. He said, you look a bit, you don't look enamoured with old Edwina. I said, oh, it's a long story, something happened when I was young. And he said, leave it with me. And he told me something that he did, which was silly. And it made me feel so much better, let's put it that way. He didn't do anything to harm Edwina, but he did something silly. And I thought, You're a cute character. You are. He was very, very perceptive, and it made me feel good. Even though I didn't think I would have ever shown on my face that, even though I'm quite open, I didn't think I would show that I didn't like somebody or I was upset about it. But anyway, he clocked it. I must have done. So he dealt with that. So it's really funny how things come full circle, and you end up seeing somebody again, and you've got to sort of adjust the karma, as it were. I don't know, but anyway, off she went, and I met some, good characters on those programs. It was quite entertaining. But moving on to Compass Group, that's an organisation that deal with catering. A huge organisation. You won't know them as Compass if you're in the UK train stations. You might have select food in one of the concessions. You might have what was used to be called Lemon Tree and all sorts of concessional food items, upper crust. They're owned or run by Compass Group. So I went into the legal department, and boy, did I hate that situation. I ended up with repetitive strain injury, and what can you do? You can't go and take the lawyers to court, can you? Because they're the lawyers. I couldn't even move my arm, and in fact today, years later, I can still feel it, where I twist my arm, especially if I type for a little while. And again, I worked with a girl to my side who didn't do anything. She used to ring up and say, "I'm in the bath, I'm not coming in today." And I used to think, why the hell isn't any of the management team dealing with it? They're frightened of her because she worked for the top guy. So it's all full circle, isn't it? The top guy was never there, so she was never there, and the rest of us bore the brunt of all the hard work. And I then moved. Oh, I left because they then said they were going to move offices, and the place where they moved to was Halesowen, which I couldn't get to on a bus. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to leave and go back into Birmingham because I didn't want to buy a car. The whole point of working locally and receiving a lower salary was to walk to work. So they said, oh no, we're going to put a coach on for all the people in the accounts office, but not for you. You can't have a coach. And they'll be going ahead of you, so the coaches, won't apply to you. So you just have to either buy your own car or get your own way there. And I just couldn't get to that particular place, so I resigned. And I've had all sorts of issues with my pension being sorted out since, because I left and then I went back, so I had a gap in my service. So I left, looked after 2 American girls for a couple of weeks, 6 weeks, and that was funny. They came to stay with me through Compass Group because their father worked in America, in Charlotte, in America, and there was an advert saying, could anybody look after these girls? So I said, I'll look after them. And I looked after them for 6 weeks. I went to France with them. I went to Paris with them. They said, we're going to go to Paris, Josie, like it was, a hop and a skip away on a bus. I said, you can't go to Paris on your own. You're only 18. You won't know where you're going. So I went with them. Me and my husband went with them on Eurostar. We went to Paris, made sure they were okay, brought them back, and the whole of the time they were with us in the UK, it rained every day. They just couldn't believe that 8 weeks of rain, 6 or 8 weeks they were with us, it rained and rained and rained. But we had a ball, and they went off to do day trips in various places, so they saw a different side of life. They just couldn't understand that we lived in tiny roads, that we didn't have any space. They were just hiding themselves. Every time they were in the car, they're going, oh, you're going to crash, because they've got such wide roads in America. So they saw a different side of life. And I do recall feeling really guilty because when I was making the bed one day, their diaries were open, and in big capital letters they said, we feel so sorry for Josie because she's so poor. I thought, am I? I thought I was rich. What are you talking about? Never read somebody's diary, that's for sure. That's the lesson of the day. I was going, they think I'm poor. Oh my gosh. I think I'm rich. What's going on? But hey, people's perceptions, it's all a game, isn't it? Anyway, they went off back home, and I've never seen them since, but they did write to me, and it was sweet. So I looked after them, and then I got a phone call saying, you wouldn't do a temp back at Compass, would you, for the director of finance, one of the top guys? I went, yeah, I need a job. I've got to get one soon. So I go back to Compass Group. I work for the director of finance while his secretary is on holiday. And I liked his secretary. She had a gravelly voice and she was always laughing. And I don't think she was particularly efficient. She had a lot going on in her life and she wasn't coping well with the job. So he thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. But I then was offered her job. He said, I'm going to move her sideways. And I said, oh no, I can't take her job. He said, well, if you don't, somebody else will. And I said, but I feel awful because I really liked her. And she came back from holiday and announced it anyway. And he told her whatever, however he said it. But I felt bad the whole time. But she went and worked somewhere else and had a bit of a laugh elsewhere. So maybe it was okay in the end. But she was the sort of person, she told me that she worked at a funeral parlour once. And she said every time somebody came in upset, she couldn't stop laughing. It's almost like nerves. And she'd push the tissues towards people, thinking she was meant to be serious. But the more she told herself she had to be serious, the more she laughed. And we were in hysterics. It's not the sort of place to be, is it, when you're at the funeral directors? And it sort of reminded me of when I went to the funeral directors when both my parents died. I remember thinking, this is a business. I'm just digressing now onto funeral parlours before I go into the compass group bit. And she said, I remember going into the funeral directors and they pushed tissues towards me. And I remember thinking back to this secretary who'd said that she had to do that. And I remember pushing the tissues away, thinking, you're not going to catch me out because this is a money-making scam. I remember thinking, funerals are one big money-making business. And particularly when we get to the end and the funeral director lady says to us, so you have to pay a big deposit today of £700 each. And we go, And she goes, you've got to pay it now. And I remember thinking, oh, you've changed your tune from, here's the tissues to, you better cough up with the money now, £700 each. And I remember thinking, I don't like this. So I can see where, funerals in the future might go because people won't put up with that. Nobody's going to pull the wool over my eyes whether I'm upset or not. So that's for another day, funerals. We'll have a good chat about that another day. But back to the job, so I don't go off and digress somewhere else. I went and worked for the director of finance. He was, we both understood each other, both Capricorns, both knew what we were doing, da-da-da. But he too said, it's all a game. All a game in the world of work. And I left to have my son, and he wouldn't let me do part-time. He wanted me there full-time. And yet he gave the girl who went in part-time after me. That's interesting, isn't it? He wouldn't let me do part-time, but he let the girl afterwards who said, well, I'd like to go in my garden then. So he would have said, I would have given it her after I'd resigned. So, yeah, funny old working world. But, that's when I went into teaching, and that was another roller coaster of life with a young child trying to teach adults. That was when I worked for a college and, taught people from MG Rover. Before that went bust. And so when I went, my son was 7 months old, and I tried to get this part-time job teaching IT in this college. They recruited people from MG Rover, and they were all male generally, a couple of women. And we were there to teach them how to use the computers. And I said to these guys, well, you've got the Chinese coming over soon, haven't you? And they said, yeah, there's big meetings. I said, well, the Chinese always are very, very, very clever. I said they'll always be sober, and they will always make sure they do a financial deal when there's an 8 in the date, because 8 is the symbol of wealth. And these guys letting the computer go, oh yeah, what's she on about? Oh, she's making up a load of mumbo jumbo. Well, do you know what happened? It went down the pan because the management of MG Rover, I think they got a bit tiddly and they enjoyed their meetings. And guess what? A deal was signed on the 8th of April. And those Chinese got what they wanted. And I think that's when lots of people lost all their pensions. Is that right? Or something like that. I do recall lots of people being upset. So the deal was done on the 8th. And the only reason I know that was because I studied feng shui. And knowing that 8 is a very, very good day to deal with finances. So remember that one when you're signing any paperwork. Very, 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 very auspicious, as they would say, to deal with things like that on the 8th. Right, so that was Compass Group, working for the finance guy, and then a college, Dudley College, and then what did I do? I had my son, and then after 4 years of part-time at Dudley College, they closed the branch where we were. The college still exists, but where we were closed because of the demise of MG Rover. And I left and then went around the county with laptops with Worcestershire County Council. And boy, oh boy, with a little baby and a little boy going to school, I sat in this tiny little Suzuki Alto with a big projector screen over my left shoulder, a child, 13 laptops I had to carry, and I'd go round to the county, different libraries, different, community centres, halls that weren't geared up. They didn't have any internet access or anything like that. I used to get trestle tables from libraries sometimes that weren't manned, community halls that weren't manned. I'd get trestle tables down from big heights, trying to open them and set them up. So I had to be there 2 hours before, for which I didn't get paid. They'd say it was all incorporated in the hourly rate. Yeah. And, I nearly broke my back with all these tables because they're heavy, and I had to set everything up. And then people would come in and I'd say, please stay the 10 weeks. Please try not to have any time off, because it's all about retention with a 10-week course. And, of course, week 2, they'd go, oh, I can't. I've got to see my Auntie Mary down in Devon. Oh, I might be able to pop in week 4, but I can't do that one because there's such a thing and such a thing. And it was all like, trying to sort of keep people going with enthusiasm. But things happen in life, don't they? So that's why people don't turn up to courses. But it's one of those. You really are sort of trying to keep the whole thing together when you've got people dipping in and out. It's not so easy on a short course. But there you have it. That was the community of working with laptops in the community. And then I went on to work in a school for a year. So I'll be another day working with 5-year-olds. Oh my word. I'll end the vlog there. I've been rambling on a bit too long, haven't I? But next time I'll be with the 5-year-olds in the school for a year. Both learning assistant and dinner lady. Or was it lunchtime supervisor? I think it's the correct title. Yeah. Oh, and dealing with Ofsted. Oh, my word. I'll see you soon. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to put any comments that you think are worth commenting on about your own experiences. It would be great to hear it. See you soon.